like Popular Science, and hell, it was on the front cover of the magazine one day in like 1961, and I was really excited when I saw it, because here's this giant red planet on the horizon of the California coast, and a humongous tidal wave coming in towards the coast, and having grew up in the mountains of the Sierras, and this thing in the magazine, it said this tidal wave coming in was going to be at least 3 miles high, and I went and showed it to everybody in the house. But over the years, as it went by and we watched it, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally, about '08, we could see this thing like it was across the street, and we could see that it was a blazing hot ball of fire giving out sparkles of red iron oxide dust for thousands of miles in every direction, and you could see the planet circulating it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I really am nervous about. I think this thing's got a planet like ours circling it. This is its own solar system. We're about to have a solar system come through the middle of our solar system. This can't be good, but unfortunately, it looks as though that's what's going to happen. Hopefully nothing in this mess will hit us, even though it does say it will in the Bible, at leastwise it does in my Bible. It says we can expect all kinds of problems. We were looking at asteroids. Right close to this thing, there's asteroids that are floating around right near the, that are orbiting the main sun itself. These things appear to be about 500 miles across, and as you go back into the tail, you get into meteorites that go back for millions of miles in the tail. This thing looks like a giant red teardrop-shaped dust cloud, and you can see once if you're able to see it up close like we did, you can see every speck out there. I guarantee you, there's trillions of meteorites following this thing. Now, these CIA people that I know say that we're not going to be that close to it when it goes past us. They're saying that in order to attain breakaway speed, when it comes up around the backside of the sun, its speed will at least double, possibly more, which will put it here earlier than everybody is saying it will, and that this thing will probably be about 20 million miles from us when it crosses in front of us. And then as soon as it flips us upside down, we're going to go into its debris-filled tail and be pelted with meteorites. And, of course, in the Bible it says they will talon 70 pounds. So if you've got 70-pound meteorites falling like hail, and I can guarantee you they will be falling like hail because there are that many in the tail of this thing. This thing has got a tail loaded with trash. I mean, it's incredible the amount of stuff that's in this thing's tail, and we're going to go right through that tail, and if it doesn't beat everything on the surface of the ground into a flat putty, I don't know what it'll take. I tell everybody, you better be at least 20, 30, 40, 50 feet on the ground and have either concrete or stone above you, because it'll break through the roof of whatever you've got if you don't. These CIA guys told me that this pole shift will probably happen from start to finish in around 28 minutes. That doesn't give you a lot of warning. When you see that thing out there in the sky, you're going to have to run as fast as you can to your underground facility, because this is going to happen so fast. Now, see, here's another thing nobody's talking about. You've got this giant iron planet that they say is 47,000 miles across, getting ready to come up past us, and when it starts to approach us, it's going to start and have real serious effects.
So is it a planet or a failed star?
It's not a failed star. You know, I saw this thing up close. It did not look like a failed star. It looked just like our sun.
Right.
Okay. Would you call our sun a failed star?
No. Okay. Well, you had said planet. I wasn't sure if it was like a failed star, brown dwarf, or a full sun. So it's a full sun?
It looks to me like a miniature sun, just like the one we have. The only difference is our sun is giving off flames and stuff, and this one's doing the same thing as it, but it's giving off this red iron oxide cloud of dust around it, and until it got close, we couldn't even tell what was in there. We could see it was hot, and it looked like it was just a dull red when we were first able to discern it through the red cloud, but as it approached, it started to become more apparent that this thing is just orange hot. I mean, to tell how hot it is, I was told that they estimated between 5 and 10 million degrees, but, I don't really know, if that's right or not. I mean, it's got to be pretty hot because it's sending all of this red iron oxide dust out into space around it.
Right.
And it's got this enormous, and I mean enormous, at least 50 or 100,000 miles on each side of it, this red dust cloud that goes all the way around it. I know when we were watching it, as it started to make the upward swing to approach behind our sun, it was amazing. The red dust cloud settled down. Instead of being round, it started to settle down into a V, like wings, upside-down wings.
Right.
And I thought, boy, I wonder if that's where the ancient Sumerians got the idea this thing had wings, because, centrifugal force is a funny thing. When it comes back up around the planet, when we see it in the sky, my guess is it's going to look like it's got wings, because centrifugal force is going to be pulling the red iron oxide dust and particles out to one side, and then as it starts to climb out and go away from us, listen, I was told that this thing's magnetic field is going to be so strong, anybody that does not have a padded lead helmet to wear will have their brain gutted for everything they ever knew, and they'll be a complete raving moron after this thing passes. They'll they won't know, they'll pee in their pants. They won't have a clue what's going on, because this thing will gut their brain. And I was reading a deal in my Bible. It says that after this happens that nobody will care because they won't be able to remember it. Well, of course, I was told by somebody the reason that is because the electromagnetic field from this thing will be so strong, because, see, as it comes up underneath of us, it's going to start and pull us toward it. And then, just like a pair of big magnets, all of a sudden it's going to lock onto us. And when it does, it's going to be like the Jolly Green Giant hit the earth in the ass. It's going to send a jolt 500 to 1,000 foot high. This is what I'm told. 500 to 1,000 foot high shock waves all the way around planet Earth. They'll be so bad that in a lot of areas that don't have good solid soil, it'll fluff it so badly that you'll practically be like you're standing in quicksand. And that this thing's magnetic field will literally gut your brain of everything. And so you may want to give some thoughts to getting you some sheet lead, build you a little lead helmet to wear, like a little motorcycle helmet to protect your entire brain and the back of your neck, so that way this can't happen. Because, if these guys are right about this, and I'm pretty sure they are, because I know for a fact they know what they're talking about when they say stuff. And and it does sound reasonable to me, knowing what I do about electromagnetic energy, that this could happen. And it very easily could gut everybody's brain for everything they ever knew, and they'll stand there and pee in their pants and go, gee, what was that? And that's if they still know how to talk. And there won't be any doubt in anybody's mind, because this thing's going to look like a big red dragon, exactly like all the ancient Sumerians and the Chinese and all the rest of them that had documented this thing's passing before. It didn't look like a white ball or a snow cloud or nothing. It looked like a big red iron oxide dust cloud with a superheated star in the middle of it. And I mean, and that's what we've seen. I don't care what anybody else says. There's a possibility. There's more than one thing out there. I watched it through the Hubble Space Telescope, and when this thing looked like it was across the street, the Hubble got cut off and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmissions we had to watch. And we know that the Hubble, in order to be in the shadow of the Earth, had to be at an angle, and so that meant it was looking downward, and this thing was coming up underneath of us. And I tell you the honest to God truth, I personally think this thing is real close to us right now, but that's just my general feeling that and I'm a pretty psychic guy. I have the feeling that this thing is right close by and that we're going to see it any time. I mean, I've been doing everything I could do to get prepared for it. I'm really worried about what Jesus says. When the fig tree is putting on its leaves, know that summer is near, and I'm at your door. And that worries me more than probably anything I've read in the Bible about this whole thing, the parable of the fig tree, because everything seems to be in place for this thing's arrival. And the bad thing is, he says, I'm going to come like a thief in the night. Well, it does also say in the Bible that I'm going to make the sun go down at noontime in Jerusalem. Okay, if that's the case, there's only one thing that'll make the sun go down. Not hit the horizon, down. Go down at noontime, and that's if the planet experiences a pole shift.
Okay, I got a quick question that you can probably answer really quickly and then continue from the chat room. Wants to know if you're talking about Planet X or Elenin, and I don't think, I've never thought Elenin is Planet X. Terrell's pretty stuck on that, but I think Elenin is a result of it. It's a comet that's been kicked in.
Elenin is extinction level event NIBIRU is near.
Right.
Does that explain it?
Yeah.
Okay, because listen, they've known about this thing forever. And I mean, they've known about it forever. I mean, if I read about it in a science magazine in 1961, that tells you that, I mean, it's only 1,800 years away. How could they not be able to see it when it came around the backside of the last sun and headed this way?
Right.
You have to know they've been watching it, because if you know, Carl Sagan was showing stuff that they took with their old telescopes that was billions and billions of miles away, and this thing's only 1,800 years away. Well, and by 1930 it was only 70 years away. You know, we do estimate that this thing, let me give you a thing, maybe you can figure out your own timeline. We estimated that this thing is traveling around 3,500 miles an hour, okay?
Okay.
That was our estimate of its speed. Now, it has been picking up speed, and that's the reason why we think it's going to arrive early, because when it comes around the backside of the sun, it's got to double that speed in order to attain breakaway speed to leave the sun and not wind up orbiting it. It's never orbited the sun in the past that we know of, so that means that it's going to have to attain breakaway speed to head back out into space. Now, you look at the NASA videos, photos, and all this other crap those morons put on the internet. This thing is coming in. It's going to, as soon as it goes around the top of the sun, it's going to go back out into space.
Right.
And it's going to do this really fast. When it goes past us, it's going to go past us so fast that we'll almost have no time to get ready. That's my opinion. But, you know, just drawing it out on paper a few times and thinking about it, and I went, you know, if this thing picks up enough speed to make breakaway speed, then that means it's going to come past us. You know, this thing, according to what I was told, is that this thing is approximately 47,000 miles in diameter, you know, 4 or 5 times the size of the Earth, and it'll come past us, and we won't have a lot of warning, and we won't get to see it in the sky until it's on us. I think the NASA timeline is completely off. I think this thing's going to arrive much earlier than they say it is. You know, I know they're saying October, but, you know, if you look at the, you know, now, I was told that the poles are not shifting at 42 miles a year. They're shifting at 42 miles a day. And the reason is because this planet is rolling over to face this thing. Now, when it goes by, it's not going to push our North Pole away. It's going to grab our southern pole with its northern pole, and it's going to be like somebody kicked this planet in the ass. That earthquake that it talks about in Revelations, when the opening of the sixth seal comes, from what I've been told, that's very accurate, because that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive earthquake when it locks onto us. As it goes past us, we're going to follow it right upside down. The oceans are just going to be roaring from pole to pole, as you could well guess they would, because if you take a planet that's 7,000 miles across and roll it upside down in 30 minutes, you're going to have some real serious problems with wind and water. We should be preparing to expect this thing to show up.
You want to hear Insider tell his story about watching NIBIRU come in with his buddies from the CIA. They watched it on the Hubble Space Telescope that you paid for with your tax dollars, yet they don't allow you to see the massive planet coming in. I'm going to give you the link while I tell you what he said, this insider. The video is called Insider Speaks Out About NIBIRU, Planet X, and Elenin. Well, Elenin is history. It broke up and flew out of here. So forget about Elenin, and he doesn't mention Oh, he does mention Elenin. He says, extinction level event, NIBIRU is near. That's how he describes Elenin. Now, he said that he saw the discovery and the news about this 50 years ago on the cover of a science magazine. And you can click on that link anytime, and it will open up a new window, and it will pause this window, and you can come back here and listen to the rest of this if you have a mind to. If you want to just go there and watch that, that's good enough. That magazine that he's referring to said that there would be a wave at least 3 miles high on all 3 coasts. Now I'm counting the East Coast, the West Coast, and the southern coast, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. So if you have a 3-mile wave coming in on all 3 coasts, anybody who lives within 100 miles of the coast is toast. It is clear by now that those people who control this information don't want you to have the truth. Or at least, I'll say, to give them the benefit of the doubt, I'll say they can't afford to let you know the truth. But when you see it in the sky, then all the speculation is done, because there it is, right there in the sky. Now, where's it going to come in from? Well, the sun is pulling it in. So if you want to know where it's at, you look toward the sun, and if it's behind the sun, there it is. It should be somewhere close to the sun as it's coming in. Now it's going to whip around the sun and then go back out. And so it will go out pretty much the way it came in, only on the other side of the sun. Does that make sense? You have to consider that the sun pulls this thing in like a magnet, and it swings around and goes around the sun. It does not collide with the sun. It goes back out. It'll be back in 3,600 more years. Now we have historical record that shows that this thing has come in the past. It was called many names: the Destroyer, Wormwood, NIBIRU. It's called Planet X today as one of the popular names for it. It was called Nemesis. I didn't know that until I read the Pleiadians report. Wendell Stevens' report about the Pleiadians. You have this object that comes in. Now this guy saw it, and his testimony is valuable because he and the CIA, he has buddies in the CIA, they watched it together for decades. And then finally their line was cut. So when I say they don't want you to know the truth, and then I qualify that by saying they can't afford to have you know the truth, you have to consider that if the people knew, they would flee the coast on all 3 sides. Everybody living in the south would move north. Everybody who lives on the East Coast would move west, and everybody on the West Coast would go east, and you'd find a jillion people in Missouri and Ohio. This is not good because those states cannot handle a jillion people. There would be no place for them to lift up their hind leg and take a pee. We have to be realistic about this. So I fully understand the secrecy. I just envy those who have underground bunkers. And if you guys didn't get your ticket, well, I'm sorry. There wasn't that many to go around. I got mine. I'm just kidding. I never got one either. I'm out here like a dirt bag just like you. So if everybody moves from the coast, how easy would it be to sell your house and get all your equity out if a big wave is coming in? Nobody would buy your house. If the truth was out, it has to be speculative. Now, the rumors will send the wise inland, away from the coast, and the rest of you can bake in the sun. Who cares? I care. That's why I'm making this video. I would like to see every wise person surviving, and that means you've got to relocate now if you trust that this thing is coming in. Now, this guy gives his testimony. Listen to it and decide. Is he telling the truth, or is he a crazy man? If everybody tries to sell their house and they can't, there are going to be some losses. All that equity will be lost. What would the losses be in home equities alone? People work their entire lives to pay off the home, And then they read that a 3-mile wave is coming in and it's going to wreck their home. Well, they try to salvage whatever they can. They try to sell it to some sucker who doesn't know the truth. If this turns out to be the truth that this man is reporting. Now, I don't have any way to determine if he's telling the truth. I listened to his story. I think he's credible. But I thought Drake was credible. Then he starts talking about Nasara. I thought Benjamin Fulford was credible. And then he starts talking about $12 trillion bonds that were offered to him by the Queen. This is hysterical. This isn't reality. This is hysterical. This is comedy writing. If 80% of the people of Earth live within 100 miles of the coast, where are they going to move? 80% of 7 billion is 5.6 billion people homeless, jobless, and wandering around looking for something to eat. And they want to know if they can use your restroom so they can rest from wandering around. I think it's pretty obvious why the governments all over the world cannot afford to let you in on this private secret. You're just going to have to die. Now, is that bad news? Of course it's bad news. What did you think it was? Good news? People say, why don't you be positive? Well, the truth is sometimes not that positive, is it? It would be better if you know than if you don't know, because if you know a little bit in advance, you have time to prepare, maybe. Maybe. I think you deserve a little bit of a chance. Most people are going to call this man a crazy man. That's good for you. Listen carefully to what he says. If you don't think he's nuts, and you act and the other guy doesn't, you might be able to sell him your house. Anyway, the government has to keep this a secret, and I think the people have a right to know, even if they abandon their homes and try to survive. But I don't own those big banks with all those mortgages, because this will collapse the entire banking system, especially those banks that hold the mortgages. But there will be a chain reaction, too. One bank goes down and it takes down 40 others. So you see why they cannot afford to tell you the truth. They want you to go all the way up to the brink of disaster, believing their lies. Who holds the mortgages on these homes? Have you seen any trends that these banks are trying to get out of mortgages along the coast? If you do, that might tell you something. If you know how to do research, why don't you look into it? I don't know how to do that research. All I know how to do is type in google.com and type in my favorite word, and there comes all the web pages that have it. If you're more clever than that, then you lead the way. Those biggest banks who hold those mortgages are the same people who own everything else. And they are protecting their investments by keeping you away from the truth. Disinformation, misinformation, and outright lies and propaganda are all legitimate in their eyes because they're protecting their assets. It is in their interest to wage a disinformation campaign to confuse you